Welcome to your NCFE Level 2 Certificate in Principles of Business Administration, Session 3 of 4. In this session, we will look at Understand Employer Organisations and understand how to develop working relationships with colleagues. My name is Phil Church and I shall be your narrator and guide for this session. This NCFE Level 2 Online Certificate in Principles of Business Administration is brought to you by Poplar Harker and Solucious Equinox Training Solutions for online learning. The units being covered today are Understand Employer Organisations and Understand how to develop working relationships with colleagues. So what does your learning journey look like? Well, just to remind you, in Session 1, you had principles of providing administrative services. In Session 2, you had principles of business document production and information management and understand communication in a business environment. In this session, we will look at understand employer organisations and understand how to develop working relationships with colleagues, and followed by that will be the online remote tutorial session, should you wish to need it. Once you have completed this session, you should be able to complete your online assessment number 1, and then that will be submitted to us for marking. And then you'll have Session 4, and understand how to store, retrieve and archive information, principles of customer service, and following that will be online assessment 2. And once you've completed that with full tutor support throughout the program, you can go on to claim your qualification in Level 2 Certificate in Principles of Business Administration. So it is important to understand the action verbs in the assignment questions. And just to remind you of what they are, those action verbs are define. You must give the precise meaning of a word. Describe. In order to describe something, you must give a detailed account of it. Explain. You need to ensure that your answer is clear, revealing relevant facts. And finally, identify. Point out and explain. Don't just give us a list. Explain your findings with these individuals that you have identified. Your answer should establish who or what something is. We will tutor you throughout the whole program and help you to complete the 2 assignments. Once you submit your assignments online, they will be assessed. All your completed assignments will then be submitted for internal and external quality assurance, and once this process is complete, you will be awarded your qualification. Of course, if you need any support, you can use our remote assistance service, and we can be contacted at learners@soluciousequinox.com. And a reminder, your emails must be marked NCFE Business Admin in the subject heading, please, so to avoid them becoming lost. So in this section, we will look at understand organisational structures. And to do that, we will explain the differences between the private sector, public sector and voluntary sector, and explain the functions of different organisational structures, and describe features of different types of legal structures for organisations. Well, what are the differences between public sector, private sector and third sector? Well, essentially, the private sector companies have been set up to make a profit for their owners, whether they are small sole traders or large corporations with multiple shareholders. And an example of a private sector company, which is a limited company like ourselves, is Solucious Equinox. Public sector organisations tend to provide services to the general public and do not tend to make profits. However, there are some exceptions to this in the form of government-owned companies such as Network Rail. The voluntary sector, which is often referred to as the third sector, comprises of social enterprises, charities and community groups. These organisations reinvest their earnings and do not make profits, as they are termed not-for-profit. Your assignment question is asking you, for question 37, to explain the differences between the private sector, the public sector, and voluntary sector, known as the third sector. So remember that private sector organisations are set up to make a profit. They provide an income for their business owners. Public sector organisations that provide services to the public, they generate income but don't necessarily make a profit. Voluntary sector are not-for-profit organisations. They're social enterprises, charities and community groups. And further reading can be found on pages 76 to 83 of your unit handbook to help you answer this question. What are the functions of different organisational structures? Hierarchical. Hierarchical is usually found in services such as the military and the police service. Government, public sector. The authority roles are at the top, with less authority lower down. If you consider the army, brigadiers, generals at the top, privates, corporals at the very bottom. Police service, chief constable, chief superintendents, assistant chief constable sitting at the top, deputy at the very bottom, police constables. So there's less authority lower down. It's organised. Everybody knows who has what role and what role is expected of them. And it's easy to understand a hierarchical structure, and one person has overall responsibility. However, they have communication issues because decisions need to be made. They have to go all the way up the hierarchical chain, and then they have to come all the way back down again once a decision has been made. And sometimes that communication can take a while to reach the ground floor, so to speak. Horizontal, a few tiers. There's people that are in senior positions, but most people are pretty much on the level. First name terms with everybody. Makes it easier to communicate. It's ideal for small and medium-sized businesses due to the fact that you can reach out and communicate a lot easier, with decisions being made a lot quicker because the staff take responsibility and the staff can make decisions, and they can be pretty much fed back in an instant. Functional focuses on skills, usually one product companies. So if you look at a good example there would be WD-40. The company that produces it makes one item. So therefore everybody knows exactly what they're there to do. And companies such as Siemens Energy, Siemens Trange, they're divisional. The company's broken down into smaller units. So Siemens make electrical products as well. So they make a vast variety, but they're broken into smaller units, and everybody has their heads within those particular units. And it's useful for large organizations rather than branches within doing whatever they need to do. It's broken into almost as if they were different companies, but they sit under one umbrella name. Your assignment question for question 38 is asking you to explain the functions of different organisational structures. So to recap, hierarchical. Authority sits at the top, less authority lower down. Organised, easy to understand, has communication issues. Can you think where they are used? What sectors? Horizontal, few tiers. Staff take responsibility, staff make decisions. Then you have functional, which is one product companies, they focus on skills. And then you have divisional. Companies are broken down into smaller units, and it's useful for large organisations. Think of some examples that you could use We've given you some examples there. Can you think of any other examples that you might want to use for your assignment? Further reading can be found on pages 76 to 83 of your unit handbook to help you answer this question. So what are the features of different types of legal structures within business organisations? Well, looking at sole trader, a sole trader is an individual owner and they can employ staff. They can register for VAT. They do their own self-assessment tax returns. They pay income tax and national insurance. And they are in full control of decisions. They have a low wage cost and low capital investment. And it's easy to set up, and they take personal financial responsibility over the decisions and finances of the company. Whereas a limited company is a separate legal entity to the owners, and it's divided into shares, either 50-50 or 60-40 if somebody takes more of an executive decision. There's private limited companies such as Solutions Equinox. Or you have public limited company where some of those shares are made offer to the public. And less personal tax for owners. And there are no personal legal liabilities. It is the company that is legally bound, not the person. It has a professional image and it's seen as less of a risk to other companies that use their services rather than a sole trader due to the fact that they know that they are bound to pay their taxes. It's a complicated setup process through companies' house and accountancies, and you have to pay an accountant to do this. And there are group decisions made amongst the shareholders. With a business partnership and a limited liability partnership, LLP, it's 2 or more people. It's profit sharing, and there's shared responsibility of decisions and finances. In amongst that group of people are different people with different skill sets. And there is a shared workload. Some examples of businesses which fall into these various categories are your gardeners for sole trader, and your window cleaners and your painters and decorators can be sole traders. Examples of limited companies: Stagecoach, Virgin, Solutions Equinox, us, Sky, British Petroleum, BP. For partnerships such as lawyers, and for limited liability partnerships where there are Virgin will take over part of Stagecoach and run such companies such as Virgin Trains. So question 39 is asking you to describe the features of different types of legal structures for organisations. So thinking back to your previous slide, think about the sole trader. What can the sole trader do and what are they bound for? Limited companies, what can they do and what are they bound under? Business partnerships, and what are they for and what are their responsibilities? And further reading can be found on pages 76 to 83 of your unit handbook to help you answer this question. In this section, we will look at understand the organisation environment. And to do that, we will describe the internal and external influences on organisations and explain the use of different models of analysis in understanding the organisational environment, and explain why change in the business environment is important. Internal and external influences on business. Businesses are affected by internal and external influences. And for internal influences, these could be things such as policies and procedures within the company, their planning and strategy, their management of staff, and their recruitment of staff, the way they communicate, their reputation and their image, and their brand promise. All of these are internal influences on how a company can operate, and all of these can affect the running of the company within, how they go about recruiting their staff, whether it's effectively, whether they are recruiting the right people for the job, do they have a good reputation in the industry. All of these are internal influences. External influences, the cost of raw material. If you trade in metals and woods and other kinds of equipment, if these raise in price, these are going to affect your overall profit margin. Labour costs, how much it costs to recruit individuals. If the minimum wage increases and this affects your staff, you're going to have to increase your wage. This will affect any profits that you make. Changes in technology. If you want to be at the forefront of what you do amongst your competitors and seen as cutting edge, you need to invest in the changes in technology to ensure you have the most up-to-date and effective equipment. Your competitors, if your competitors are making changes to what they do and are buying in new equipment and changing the materials they use, this is going to have an effect on your company. Any new legislation, the Working Time Directive, the minimum wage, the coronavirus brought in new legislation which effectively shut a lot of businesses or caused them to have to adapt very quickly to the environment. So those are external influences. And the changing expectations of customers. Customers are expecting very much a delivery service in these days of coronavirus. Companies are using click and collect services or home delivery. If the companies that do not adapt to this, these external influences can affect your profits. And changing standards and regulations. If you are a company that, for example, builds semiconductors, microchips, and as a result in changes of legislation, new legislation comes in to say you cannot use lead-based solder, as a result of that changing standards and regulations means you're going to have to adapt to designing new technology and soldering equipment that does not use this process in order to ensure that you keep up with the legislation. So question 40 is asking you to describe the internal and external influences on organisations. So think back to what we've just discussed for internal: policies, procedures, staff recruitment, management recruitment, brand promise, image, reputation. External: competition, legal factors, socio-economic changes in legislation and what the customer expects, industry changes as well. And further reading can be found on pages 84 to 89 of your unit handbook to help you answer this question. PESTLE analysis for business planning. Businesses need to take a number of factors into account when planning for the environment in which they operate, and the PESTLE model helps to assess this environment by looking at 5 factors specifically. So for political, these are all about how and to what degree a government intervenes in the economy. This can include government policy, political stability or instability in overseas markets, foreign trade policy, tax policy, labour law, environmental law, trade restrictions, and so on. It's clear from above that the political factors often have an impact on organisations and how they do business. Organisations need to be able to respond to the current and anticipated future legislation and adjust their marketing policy accordingly. Economic factors have a significant impact on how an organisation does business and also how profitable they are. Factors include economic growth, interest rates, exchange rates, inflation, disposable income of consumers, and business factors, and so on. These factors can be further broken down into a macroeconomical and microeconomical factors. Macroeconomical factors deal with the management of demand in any given economy. Governments use interest rate control, taxation policy, and government expenditure as their main mechanisms for their use for this. Microeconomic factors are all about the way people spend their incomes. This has a large impact on business to customer organisations in particular. Social, also known as socio-cultural factors, are the areas that involve the shared belief and attitudes of the population. And these factors include population growth, age distribution, health consciousness, career attitudes, and so on. These factors are of a particular interest as they have a direct effect on how marketeers understand customers and what drives them. Technology. Technological factors, and we all know how fast the technological landscape changes and how this impacts the way we market products. Technological factors affect business and marketing and the management thereof in three distinct ways: new ways of producing goods and services, new ways of distributing goods and services, and new ways of communicating with target markets. Environmental. These factors have only really come to the forefront within the last 15 years or so. They've become important due to the increasing scarcity of raw materials, pollution targets, and doing business as an ethical and sustainable company. Carbon footprint targets set by governments, and this is a good example where one factor could be classed as political and environmental at the same time. These are just some of the issues that businesses are facing within this factor. More and more consumers are demanding that the products that they buy are sourced ethically and, if possible, from a sustainable source. And finally, legal. Legal factors include health and safety, equal opportunities, advertising standards, consumer rights and laws, product labelling, product safety. It's clear that companies need to know what is and what is not legal in order to trade successfully. If an organisation trades globally, this becomes a very tricky area to get right, and each country has its own set of rules and regulations. After you've completed a personal analysis, you should be able to use this to help you identify the strengths and weaknesses for a SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats analysis. And scenario planning for business planning. Organisational strategy. What is the organisational strategy? It may be to grow the business by entering different markets or sectors. Environmental analysis. What does the environmental analysis tell you regarding the marketplace that you intend to enter? And forecasting. Taking the organisational strategy and environmental analysis into account, what can be forecasted? And the scenario planning, taking all these factors into account. Plan for as many scenarios as possible. Plan for sudden changes. And this SWOT and personal analysis are integral tools in this process. So question 41 is asking you to explain the use of different models of analysis in understanding the organisational environment. So, a SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats. Identify and fix the weaknesses, anticipate the threats, identify opportunities, and remember your PESTLE analysis for assessing the business environment, scenario planning, and plan for sudden changes. And further reading can be found on pages 84 to 89 of your unit handbook to help you answer this question. Organisational change and its benefits. It is beneficial for organisations to change and reflect the realities of the marketplace in which they operate. Many companies that you may know have their origins in very different sectors to the ones they now operate in. Babcock and Wilcox were originally boilermakers. They then became shipbuilders, and they have now diversified into just being a service company and are one of the largest in the world. They maintain aircraft and submarines, and they even train police and firefighters through their training divisions. Group 4 started off as a security company and merged with Securicor to become another service company with interests in security, training, and service provision across the world. Porsche started as a tractor builder and diversified into sports cars. Ironically, Porsche are now one of the biggest SUV builders, as that side of the business is bigger than sports cars, showing that they have embraced further change. British Aerospace was purely an aircraft manufacturer, and although through mergers and purchases they now build submarines, ships, planes, tanks, small arms, missiles, etc. Stella Artois. Stella took over other companies around the world to become InBev, and they now run pubs, hotels, and make spirits, wines, and of course beer all around the world. Companies change for all sorts of reasons, and those who fail to adapt don't survive. Change may be required for a number of reasons, and some of these include to outperform their competitors by changing processes, change to take advantage of opportunities, keep up with technology changes, change to keep up with demand, expand, take over other companies, to improve procedures, cost savings to increase profits, reduce staffing levels, gain greater flexibility, and develop new skills for workforce. Solutions Equinox, Sets Limited. Due to the coronavirus, we adapted to online learning, and therefore this course was due to be delivered in the classrooms and has now been designed to be delivered to you online remotely. So that's the ability to adapt. For question 42, your question is asking you to explain why change in the business environment is important. Think back over some of the areas that we've just covered to stay competitive, to meet customers' needs, upskill employees for growth, and further reading can be found on pages 84 to 89 of your unit handbook to help you answer this question. In this section, we will look at understand the principles of effective team working. And to do that, we will outline the benefits of effective team working. Describe how to give feedback constructively. Explain techniques to give positive feedback and constructive criticism. And explain management techniques that may be used to resolve team conflicts. And explain the importance of giving team members the opportunity to discuss work progress and any issues arising. And explain the importance of warning colleagues of problems and changes that may affect. Feedback can be given in different ways. It can be given formally or informally, either as a quick chat or a formal discussion, usually sometimes in the form of maybe an investigative interview, disciplinary chat, or an appraisal for formal. It can be given verbally, face-to-face, one-to-one, written in the form of appraisal documents or SWOT analysis, 360 feedback, qualitative in the form of non-statistical data, or quantitative such as text and documents, audio and video recordings, observations and notes. It's not always easy to give feedback, however, it is important for it to be honest and constructive. Honest, telling the truth or able to be trusted and not likely to steal, cheat or lie. Constructive, useful and likely or intended to improve something. Use the appropriate language to the person receiving the feedback. Don't use hostile language. Put yourself in their shoes. Use the sandwich method. Start off with good feedback, have the constructive feedback in the middle, and always end on a positive note. Different types of teams within business. Types of teams. You have strategic teams, management teams, operational teams, functional teams, cross-functional teams, contract, project teams, virtual teams, matrix teams, and self-managed teams, and teams set up for task force. And the purpose of teams, they have a common purpose and objectives. They're designed to have productivity in mind, designed for quality, designed for support systems, designed for continuous improvement, new initiatives and ideas. Can you think of some of the types of teams that you have in your workplace that would fit what strategic, management, operational, functional, and so on are, and their purposes? Dr. Meredith Belbin came up with 9 Belbin team roles. Talks about the resource investigator, the team worker, the coordinator, the plant, the monitor evaluator, the specialist, the shaper, the implementer, and the complete finisher. All of these people you will find on a good team. The resource investigator. Well, the resource investigator gives a team a rush of enthusiasm at the start of the project by vigorously pursuing contracts and opportunities. They use their inquisitive nature to find ideas to bring back to the team. They're outgoing, they're enthusiastic, they explore opportunities and develop contacts. They have allowable weaknesses. They might be over optimistic and they can lose interest once the initial enthusiasm has passed. Don't be surprised to find that they might forget to follow up on a lead. The team worker acts as the oil, the gel between the cogs that keeps the machine that's effectively running smoothly. They allow the team to gel together. They use their versatility to identify the work required and complete it on behalf of the team. They're cooperative, perceptive and diplomatic, and they listen and averts friction. They can be indecisive in crunch situations and they can tend to avoid confrontation, so don't be surprised to find that they might be hesitant to make unpopular decisions. The coordinator. Now, the coordinator is a likely candidate for the chairperson of a team, since they have a talent for stepping back to see the big picture. They're needed to focus on the team's objectives, to draw out team members and delegate work appropriately. They're mature, confident, they can identify talent and they can clarify goals, but they can be seen as manipulative and they might offload their own share of work. Don't be surprised to find that they might over-delegate, leaving themselves little work to do. The plants. Now, the plants are creative, unorthodox, and generators of ideas. If an innovative solution to a problem is needed, a plant is a good person to ask. They tend to be highly creative and good at solving problems in unconventional ways. They're creative, imaginative, free-thinking, they generate ideas and solve difficult problems. But they might ignore the incidentals, and they may be too preoccupied to communicate effectively. So don't be too surprised that they could be absent-minded or forgetful. Now, the monitor evaluators are fair and logical observers and judges of what is going on the team. Provide a logical eye, making impartial judgments where required, and they weigh up the team's options in a dispassionate way. They're sober, strategic, and discerning. They see all the options and they judge accurately. Sometimes they lack the drive and ability to inspire others, and they can be overly critical. So don't be too surprised to find that they could be slow to come to decisions. The specialists are the passionate people who are about learning in their own particular field. So they bring in depth of knowledge of a key area to the team. Single-minded, self-starting and dedicated. They provide specialist knowledge and skills. They tend to contribute on a narrow front and they can dwell on technicalities, so don't be too surprised if they overload you with information. The shaper. The shaper is a task-focused individual who pursues objectives with vigour and is driven by tremendous energy and the need to achieve. They provide the necessary drive to ensure that the team keeps moving and does not lose focus or momentum. They're challenging, dynamic, they thrive on pressure, and they have the drive and courage to overcome obstacles. They can be prone to provocation and may sometimes offend people's feelings, so don't be too surprised to find that they could risk becoming aggressive and bad-humoured in their attempts to get things done. The implementer. Now, the implementer takes their colleagues' suggestions and ideas and turns them into positive actions. They're needed to plan a workable strategy and carry it out as efficiently as possible. So they're practical, reliable, efficient. They turn ideas into actions and organise in work that needs to be done. They can be a bit inflexible and slow to respond to new possibilities, so don't be surprised to find that they might be slow to relinquish their plans in favour of positive changes. And the completer finisher. The completer finisher is a perfectionist and will often go the extra mile to make sure that everything is just right. And the things that he or she delivers can be trusted and have been double checked and then checked again. They're most effectively used at the end of tasks to polish and scrutinise the work for errors, subjecting it to the highest standards of quality control. They're painstakingly conscientious, they're anxious, they search out errors and they polish and they perfect. But they can be inclined to worry unduly and reluctant to delegate for fear of giving up the quality to somebody else who could make mistakes. So don't be too surprised to find that they could be accused of taking their perfectionism to extremes. So the benefits of effective team working are increased productivity, increased profitability, there's development of trust. Everyone knows their role and what others expect of them. Deliver a higher standard of product and or service. Follow the organisation's policies and procedures. They deliver the project on time and in budget. They provide support. And there's opportunities in there for career development. Question 43 is asking you to outline the benefits of effective team working. So think back to Belbin's roles and also the increased productivity, the increased profitability. Everyone knows their role and what's expected of them. Provides support, delivers the project on time and in budget, and career development. And further reading can be found on pages 90 to 92 of your unit handbook to help you answer this question. Importance of giving constructive feedback. Giving feedback is not just reserved for managers or supervisors. So how do you give constructive feedback? Well, identify the issue straight away and provide specific feedback regarding the problem. Use open body language. Give the feedback as soon as possible after the event. Give feedback often. Give the person a chance to respond. Give suggestions to them. And review. And always show support. Your assignment question is asking you to describe, question 44, how to give constructive feedback. So identify the issue straight away, provide specific open body language, give the feedback as soon as possible after the event, give the feedback often, give the person a chance to respond, give suggestions, review it, and show support. So question 45, your assignment question, is asking you to explain techniques to give positive feedback and constructive criticism. So don't use hostile language. Put yourself in their shoes. How would you like to receive this feedback? Use the sandwich method of positive, constructive, and ending on a positive note. Use appropriate language for the person receiving the feedback. Further reading can be found on pages 93 to 95 of your unit handbook to help you answer this question. There will always be disagreements and some conflict within teams. And some of these sources of conflict are conflict between individuals. Some individuals may not get on with each other, may have differences of opinion, whether it be personally or business. Conflict between groups, disaffection with the workload or work slippages, lack of appreciation and perceived unfairness, misunderstandings and poor sharing of information, external problems that affect the team or individuals, differences of opinion, people having different objectives, incompatible objectives and rivalry, bullying, harassment, or personality clashes between individuals, and management of this conflict, such as having negotiation between parties, good open communication, understanding the different personalities of people on the team, setting non-conflicting goals, clear explanation of policies and procedures, being consistent, being fair, recognizing and rewarding effort, and early intervention into problems. So in essence, forcing, collaborating, withdrawing and smoothing. Forcing, also known as competing, an individual firmly pursues their own concerns despite resistance from the other person. This may involve pushing one point of view at the expense of another and maintaining firm resistance to another person's actions. And examples of forcing may be appropriate in certain situations when all other, less forceful methods don't work or are ineffective. When you need to stand up for your own rights, resist aggression or pressure. When a quick resolution is required and using force is justified, for example, in a life-threatening situation to stop aggression. As a last resort to resolve a long-standing conflict. Some possible advantages of forcing may provide a quick resolution to a conflict, increases self-esteem and draws respect when firm resistance or actions were the response to aggression or hostility. But there are some caveats of forcing. It may negatively affect your relationship with the opponent in the long run. It may cause the opponent to react in the same way, even if the opponent did not intend to be forceful originally. You cannot take advantage of the strong sides of the other side's position, and taking this approach may require a lot of energy and be exhausting to some individuals. Collaborating, it's also known as a win-win. It's also known as confronting the problem or problem solving. Collaboration involves an attempt to work with the other person to find a win-win solution to the problem at hand, the one that most satisfies the concerns of both parties. The win-win approach sees conflict resolution as an opportunity to come to a mutually beneficial result. It includes identifying your opponent's underlying concerns and finding an alternative which meets each party's concerns. Some examples of when collaborating may be appropriate, such as when consensus and commitment of other parties is important. In a collaborative environment, when addressing the interests of multiple stakeholders is required, when a high level of trust is present, when a long-term relationship is important, when you don't want to take full responsibility. Possible advantages of collaborating: it leads to solving the actual problem, leads to a win-win outcome, reinforces mutual trust and respect, and builds a foundation for effective collaboration in the future. And you earn a reputation as a good negotiator. Some caveats, though: it requires a commitment from all parties to look for mutually acceptable solution, may require more effort and more time than some other methods. For the same reason, collaborating may not be practical when timing is crucial and a quick solution or fast response is required. Withdrawing is also known as avoiding. This is when a person neither pursues their own concerns nor those of their opponent. He or she does not address the conflict but sidesteps it, postpones or simply withdraws. Some examples of when withdrawing may be appropriate: when the issue is trivial and not worth the effort, when more important issues are pressing and you don't have time to deal with it, in situations where postponing the response is beneficial to you, for example, when it's not the right time or the right place to confront the issue, and when you need time to think and collect information before you act, for example, if you're unprepared or you've been taken by surprise, or when you see no chance of getting your concerns met, or you would have to put forth unreasonable effort, or when you have had to deal with hostility. Some possible advantages of withdrawing are when the opponent is forcing or attempts aggression, you may choose to withdraw and postpone your response until you're in a more favourable circumstance for you to push back. Withdrawing is a low stress approach when the conflict is short, and it gives you the time and the ability to focus on more important, more urgent issues instead. For some caveats, though, it may lead to weakening or losing your position. Not acting may be interpreted as an agreement. Using withdrawing strategies without negatively affecting your own position requires certain skill and experience, and when multiple parties are involved, withdrawing may negatively affect your relationship with a party that expects your action. And smoothing is also known as accommodating. Smoothing is accommodating the concerns of other people first rather than prioritising one's own concerns. Some examples of smoothing, when it may be appropriate, is when it's important to provide a temporary relief from conflict or buy time until you're in a better position to respond or push back. When the issue is not as important to you as it is to the other person. When you accept that you are wrong. When you have no choice, or when continued conflict would be detrimental. Some possible advantages of smoothing. In some cases, smoothing will help protect more important interests while giving up on some less important ones. It gives an opportunity to reassess the situation from a different angle. Now, as a rule, it does not require much effort. Some caveats of smoothing, though: the risk of being abused is real. The opponent may try to constantly take advantage of your tendency towards smoothing or being accommodating. Therefore, it is important to maintain the right balance, and this requires some skill. It may negatively affect your confidence in your ability to respond to an aggressive opponent. It makes it more difficult to transition to a win-win situation in the future. Many of your supporters may not like your smoothing response and be turned off by it. So question 46 is asking you to explain conflict management techniques that may be used to resolve team conflicts. So think of the ones we've just used there for forcing, collaborating, compromising, withdrawing and smoothing, and explain about each part there. And further reading can be found on pages 95 to 100 of your unit handbook to help you answer this question. Discuss work progression and any issues with team members to see if their progress aligns with managers' expectations, to deal with any questions about the work, to clear up any misunderstandings, to see if they're on target for deadlines, to reduce stress, to feel part of a team, to feel supported, and to resolve issues. Have you ever felt frustrated that you have not been able to discuss the progress of your work? How did that make you feel? Did this make you feel that you weren't part of the team? Did this make you feel unsupported? Did this cause you to feel stressed? Did you feel issues remained unresolved? Because question 47 is asking you to explain the importance of giving team members the opportunity to discuss work progress and any issues arising. So recapping to see if their progress aligns with managers' expectations, to reduce stress, to feel part of a team, to feel supported and resolve issues. Plus there were some others. Can you remember what they were? Further reading can be found on pages 95 to 100 of your unit handbook to help you answer this question. All change, all change. Things invariably change in our own lives for various reasons, and this is equally applicable to organisations. The process of effectively managing change within organisations is often referred to as change management. Change within organisations can be as a consequence of many different reasons, and some of the main ones could be as follows. Changes in technology. Before you is a high-speed train. This is old 20th century technology. So train companies, franchises, have had to adapt to new technology and bring in the new modern Hitachi high-speed trains, which is an advancement 21st century technology to meet the requirements of an ever-increasing demand and more trains on the line to cope with a modern signalling system. To reflect what their competitors are doing. If competitors are moving in a particular direction, it's worth looking at to see what they're doing, to see if your company needs to do the same. Changes in the marketplace, retail in particular, companies such as Amazon and eBay who do very quick home deliveries, Tesco's, Sainsbury's, Morrison's who do home deliveries. All of this has had to adapt the marketplace very quickly in order to keep up with demand and with what the competitors are doing. Reflecting customer expectations. This corresponds to what's just been discussed. Customers are now expecting companies to deliver, to have click and collect, and are very surprised in many occasions when they do not. New legislation, regulations, standards such as working time directive, minimum wage, have to adapt their working practices in order to suit. Environmental factors. Many companies these days are expected to be leaner, greener, using moral and ethical methods, and sustainable goods. Politics, whether it be local or national economics. Internal business needs, such as cutting costs, modernisation, changes to product lines. And external business factors, such as the COVID-19 situation with coronavirus, has affected businesses across the globe, and their ability to change and adapt in many cases has seen companies bloom and blossom, and companies that have not adapted or not adapted at all have collapsed. Change will impact staff in different ways, so it's important to understand and recognise this. And during a process of change, team members may experience the following: increased levels of stress, feelings of inadequacies, reduced productivity accompanied by failure to achieve targets. They may suffer reduced pay. They may have reduction in job satisfaction, reduced career opportunities, a lack of confidence in team leaders and managers that may result in conflict between team members, loss of key team members due to staff reductions or because they choose to leave, a lack of job security. And they may find that there is a closure of organisations' sites within their portfolio. And Kubler-Ross demonstrated this in the Kubler-Ross change curve. Well, when there is an announcement of a change, morale and competence being at a high level, there is sudden shock at the event or shock to the announcement of the change. Maybe it's a closure or an imminent closure to a factory or a shop or a business department. And there's denial. They're looking for evidence that this isn't true. So over time, morale and competence goes up because they're in complete disbelief and denial that it's going to occur. So let's just carry on. It's not going to happen to us. And they'll be looking around to find evidence that it isn't true. But then they suffer frustration because they realise actually this is happening in their direction. It's going to happen. Now, if you take a car factory and the implementation of the use of robots to carry out welding, in a particular very famous factory that I visited a few years ago, when I asked this question, did the robots have an impact on reduction of job roles, they actually said there was quite shock when it first occurred because they didn't believe that the robots would weld as good as a human could. So they were in denial, saying that they would never get rid of us because we're quite highly skilled. And when they realised actually that the robots were going to be coming in and were going to be doing exactly that, there was severe frustration from them, and they actually resulted in anger, and there was threats of walkouts and strikes. Then there was depression and low mood, so morale and competence dipped significantly. And as a result of that, when they started to introduce the robots were introduced and they started to experiment with multi-training their staff to work on multiple departments and also to supervise the welding and carry out supervision checks on the equipment. So the initial engagement with the new situation, morale and competence started to rise up. And then a decision was made in order for the workers to be multi-competent. So they would work in the electrical department and they would work on the stamping plant. So they were multi-skilled, which actually made them feel a lot more respected and thought of. So they were integrated into the change. So morale and competence rose over time as they were integrated. Now there are actually more staff working in these departments, supervising the equipment and the robots, and these people can be moved from department to department. So if there's a problem in one area, the staff feel that they have more of expertise and are highly sought after. To help manage change for the team by providing support for them and manage any expectations, answer the staff's questions and give input to them, and be receptive to the staff voicing concerns. Give organisational training and information. Help the change go smoothly. Deal with problems quickly. Question 48 is asking you to explain the importance of warning colleagues of problems and changes that may affect them. So don't forget, you need to provide support, manage expectations. Staff will ask questions and give inputs, and the staff will voice their concerns. And the organisation should give training and information and help that the change goes smoothly and deals with problems quickly. And there are lots more. Further reading can be found on pages 95 to 100 of your unit handbook to help you answer this question. In this section, we will understand how to buddy a colleague. And to do that, we will describe what is expected of a buddy, explain techniques to establish rapport with a buddy, buddies in the workplace are an important support mechanism in a number of situations. For example, a new employee, moving to a new department, learning a new role, during change management processes. What would be expected of a buddy? Well, they should be a good listener, and they should help the new colleague to learn about the organisation. They should show the colleague how to do different parts of their job and provide information and provide general support and regularly arrange for informal catch-ups and help with any concerns. Question 49 is asking you to describe what is expected of a buddy. So remember, be a good listener, help the new colleague learn about the organisation, provide information and provide general support. Can you think of any more? Further reading can be found on pages 101 to 102 of your unit handbook to help you answer this question. Establishing a rapport with a buddy is very important so that the staff member feels that they are approachable. Ask them questions, listen to their questions and comments, answer their questions, use open body language. Let them know that they can ask you questions. Give them your contact information. Set up regular catch-ups. Introduce them to other new members of staff. Your assignment question is asking you, for question 50, to explain techniques to establish rapport with a buddy. So ask them questions, listen to their questions and comments, answer their questions, use open body language, let them know that they can ask you questions, give them your contact information, set up regular catch-ups and introduce them to other new members of staff. And further reading can be found on pages 101 to 102 of your unit handbook to help you answer this final question for Assignment 1. This concludes the third of the 4 sessions relating to your qualification. In your next presentation, we will be covering the following topics. Understand how to store, retrieve, and archive information. Principles of customer service. You will have been sent by email a time, date, and GoToMeeting link for you to log on for the teaching session which accompanies this presentation. And to get the most from your learning journey, please ensure that you log on to this online session with your trainer and subscribe to our YouTube channel in order for you to obtain the most latest of our lesson material. We hope that you found this presentation useful, and we encourage you to use the unit handbooks which are accessible in PDF format from your ePortfolio to support your studies. If you have any questions, our remote assistance service, we can be contacted at learners@solutionsequinox.com, and your emails must be marked NCFE Leadership in the subject heading, and our contact numbers are there available for you. And don't forget, you can also ask us questions in your remote tutorial session that follows this delivery. Thank you for listening.